And welcome to this edition of the Native News Update on this Monday, January 28th. I am the host for today's program, Paul DeMain, and many of the stories we read here can also be found at our website, IndianCountryTV.com. And today we bring to you a special report of interviews and video filmed in Madison, Wisconsin last week, where several hundred people made their show, some waiting all day long for their 2 minutes in which to testify, and others eventually turned away. The subject, a proposed open pit mine in the Pinocchio Mountain Range above the Bad River Ojibwe Reservation and the Bad River, which flows into Lake Superior through the reservation, and a wild rice bed that now produces thousands of pounds of rice annually. On February 9th, State Senator Bob Jauch and Representative Janet Bewley have called for a non-official public listening session because Republican legislators have refused to come to northern Wisconsin to hold an official hearing in their quest to fast-track a mining permit bill. The nearby Michigan newspaper, the Ironwood Globe, citing an unnamed source, said the Committee on Workforce Development, Forestry, Mining, and Revenue would draw threats if they held a hearing anywhere near where the mine would be located in Iron and Ashland counties, but did not elaborate if the threats were coming from or directed at the American Indian community. That listening session will begin on 9 a.m. on Saturday, February 9th, and continue for the entire day. State Senator Timothy Cullen of southern Wisconsin said he would join Jauch and Bewley on that day. In addition, on Saturday, February 16th, there will be a 2-hour panel discussion on mining at the La Coudray Casino and Convention Center, alongside a feast and social hand drum honoring of the Idle No More movement that is open to the public. That panel begins at 3 p.m. We start today's program with an interview with Bad River Ojibwe Tribal Chairman Mike Wiggins. A shot of the Overpass Light Brigade support protests for treaties outside the state capitol, and several other speakers opposed to the mine. I'm in the Wisconsin State Capitol, and we're going to be talking here with the chairman of the Bad River Ojibwe, Mike Wiggins, about his observations from today's hearing on AB 1 and Senate Bill 1, the only hearing that's been scheduled for a mining bill 300 miles from where it might impact people. But Mike, tell us a little bit about what you're seeing here today with the people and the testimony. How do you feel about what's happened today?
Well, I think today is just another example of where a lot of our Native folks come down, 6-hour bus ride, and they're relegated to testimony after 4 p.m. While mining proponents are, kind of march through at 9 a.m. to noon. And I think there's a reason for that. One is probably convenience for their friends. The other one is access to media. A lot of the media doesn't stick around until the wee hours of an afternoon. The rest of what that really represents is speculation, but I can say it doesn't feel good.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that process. I mean, I have reported on this story for now over a year. Last year I was saying, they limited the chairman of the Bad River Tribe, everything that he emotionally had to say about this issue, everything he knew about the hydrology, the geology, the biology, everything else, right?
Yeah.
He only had 10 minutes to get up there and testify. Today, they have extended you a total of 120 seconds. Is that an improvement?
I think it's representative of how willing they are to listen. I'm seeing closed ears, and I'm seeing dollar signs clouding their eyes.
It's in the front end a broken process, it seems. I heard that again from people. It's the process. No dignity, not being able to hear even when you're talking to them.
Well, I think, I heard enough in the questioning of the committee members today to truly understand this is about trying to make a mine happen for a company. And there's lots of money at stake. I mean, when you look at 40% of the revenue from this particular project, going back to WEDC and Governor Walker, they're trying to make this happen, and it's at everybody's expense, all citizens, and it's at the expense of waters and the lands, and that's evident. I seen that today so many times in the way questions were framed and the way they kept referring back to all of their meetings with the mining company and officials.
In other words, they've had a lot of meetings with the mining company officials, in which I doubt they'd had to travel 300 miles. Does the number of people coming from northern Wisconsin, people from Red Cliff, people from Hayward, people from Ashland, who drove, some of the people got up, I heard, at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning to come down here. Does that leave you with the impression that maybe this thing is going to galvanize people from northern Wisconsin in a way, bring them together that we haven't seen in the past?
I think I'm definitely seeing, the spirit of the Northwoods turn out. There's a rainbow of colors in terms of who's here to speak against the mine, and then when you look at the environmental groups, I mean, it's almost every environmental group out there that cares about land and water is directly opposed to what's taking place here.
You talked a lot about 7 generations. You talked about your great-great-grandchildren, and I'm not sure if that's a value that is very instilled in people that we're talking to when they've only been here for 2 or 3 generations. You said there's kind of like this disconnect in the thinking process. How can we bring that thinking process to at least the citizens of northern Wisconsin, even if the legislature won't hear you out?
Well, I think, talking in real language and real talk about what these mines mean for our communities. Words like perpetuity, forever, perpetual maintenance, things like that change the paradigm of what we're talking. It takes us beyond a boom and bust economy. It takes us beyond notions of 20 years of bonding for reclamation purposes. Acidic drainage from sulfides will last thousands of years. And so we need to really work hard at changing our language and changing our paradigm on how we approach these things. What we're kind of led to believe is this is just jobs, and 20 to 30 years of sustainable economy here. But the fact is we're talking about projects that are going to last 7 generations, and usually that's not a good thing.
One last question, or looking for a statement. Today, the Lekudere Ojibwe tribal chairman sent testimony down that essentially said, we don't agree with the mine, therefore we don't agree with the mining legislation. Do you see that as a break in bringing the tribes of Wisconsin, holding them together, that intertribal support, or how do you view that support?
I think it was really, really nice timing for Chairman Thayer and Vice Chairman Mick Isham to stand up and send that endorsement from LCO. I was, as a tribal leader from Bad River, I mean, I was extremely happy to see that statement, and it, from the get-go, the Anishinaabe have been standing strong. I mean, we're solidified through Gliffwick and the Voigt decision, and all of us come together. When you think about that elk and our fight to protect Mayangan, it's just the way we do things.
I'm Paul DeMain for IndianCountryTV.com in the Wisconsin state capital, Madison, Wisconsin. I want to thank you for talking with us again, Mike.
Yeah, thank you.
Today we saw, I think, one of the greatest turnouts. You want to remember it's in the middle of the winter, it's in the middle of the week, it's freezing out here. People had to drive from Red Cliff, from Mellon, from Hurley, from Hayward, from all over northern Wisconsin to come down here, only to be told that they were going to have a total of 120 seconds of speaking time to be able to present their concerns with what's going to take place if GTAC should get its way and have the bill that it wrote passed by legislators here in the state capitol, many who don't reside in northern.
This Labor Council meeting, and I told them what's going on with mechanizing mines in Australia. I told them what a tremendous amount of waste a mine in the Pinocchio Hills would generate, and how you would be sacrificing more livelihoods than you would gain, and they listened. And people who might not have been for, or who might not have been on our side, were on our side by the end of that meeting. That's what we all need to do. We need to be reaching out. Because there was a woman in there I heard testify earlier who talked about her husband having to move to the Bakken oil fields in North Dakota to make a living. And she needs to hear that he should not, her family shouldn't have to rely on that. Her family shouldn't have to make their living off of savaging the land.
The mining bill itself. Tell me what you think about the mining bill, what your organization, the people you represent, think about it.
It's the same exact mining bill that was defeated with bipartisan support last legislative session, that was written behind closed doors by the mining industry and some of the lawmakers here in Wisconsin. We've seen again that the tribes of northern Wisconsin have been left out of the bill drafting process this time around. They've put the same bill out there that exempts mining industry from environmental standards that the state of Wisconsin has, when everyone else, every other company, every person in the state has to follow those environmental standards. Why doesn't the mining company?
You get any feeling about the number of people that were involved in this process? I mean, the fact that even though it's 300 miles from the mine, you saw a tremendous outpouring here of people who had something to say about it. Does that give you a feeling about what the legislators might eventually do with it at all?
Well, today I'd have to say that there are over 600 folks that filled out hearing slips that, whether they're for or against the issue, I'd have to say, probably 70 or 80% of the folks were against this mining bill. And we heard it come up in the hearing today that legislators behind closed doors again have had several meetings with the mining company, several hearings, and that haven't involved the tribal folks, the tribal leaders. What's happening? Why aren't these hearings or meetings being announced? Why can't they come up with why can't they show that respect?
Okay, thanks, Matt. We'll keep in touch with you on this whole subject in the future and see where it goes.
Thank you.
A job destroyer. This is an earth destroyer. This is a pure corporate, greedy, thieving, lying, cheating, stealing administration. And I will fight to the end against these crooks. And I am so glad to see the tough out here tonight in this snow and this cold. Blessed be.
My name is Rachel Byington. I'm from Madison. My tribe's Choctaw. My tribe's from Oklahoma, but I was born here in Madison. And one thing I understand is respecting those treaty rights. Native people have been having their rights eroded since Europeans came to this country, and it's time to stop that abuse to Native people. And the Bad River Tribe has come out and said that it will impact them, and that's all we need to know. That's all that needs to be said, because that's on ceded land. That was their area. And the government, through treaties, negotiated with, like Twisted Arms and whatever, to obtain that land. And those treaties say that the Bad River people will have the right to hunt, fish, and gather. And the mines will affect their wild rice beds. Their wild rice beds are already being affected and impacted from environmental damage. This would speed up the process, and it's not just that. That's a huge part of it. But the other part is that's an ecosystem, and when we mess with an ecosystem, we don't know what could happen.
We're talking with Frank Kane, who's been involved in mining issues for many years in the Wisconsin State Capitol, because today they're holding hearings on AB 1, Senate Bill 1, the only and first bill that's been introduced here in the state of Wisconsin that may impact the Bad River watershed if it goes through. And I want to know what Frank thinks a little bit about observing this process. What do you think today's hearing is going to accomplish? What do you think about him?
My hope is today's hearing will be cause to have another hearing, and have that hearing in Odena, have that hearing in Bad River, and go up to the only community in the whole state that will be totally affected by this mine. The people from Iron County, Ashland County, surrounding area can come and testify, but they will be in the community that has to live with this. I don't think it's a stretch to say if this was Cudahy, we'd see a whole different process. If it was West Bend, we'd see a whole different process if it was the Dells or any place else. So I think the question has to be put on the table of the 15-year litigation, the 20-year litigation, that's just kicking the can down the road. We need to face the realities of ceded territory, and we need to look at this whole situation and say, okay, what are usufructuary rights? What is a fiduciary responsibility of state and federal government? What does that all mean? Bad River has water quantity and water quality standards. That needs to be put on the table. And if that's the deal breaker, if it can't happen, I think that loud and clear the message was there will be no mine. We don't want the mine in our community, because long term it affects the economy negatively. It creates a nightmare. We listen to person after person wander through a variety of scenarios, from turning this into some pristine hunting range of some sort to additional skiing and swimming. It's all foolishness. That's there now. And it's in a natural system. It's in an ecosystem that's gone on for thousands of years, certainly since the last glacial period. And it has grown, and it has maintained, and it has sustained. The water that travels through that region, through the Pinokies, through the Bad River watershed, takes 50 years to get to Lake Superior. We start messing with that, we'll have water that's taken us 20 minutes to get to Lake Superior, and we'll have absolutely no way to clean it up. I think the proposal was put on the table of how much will it cost to build a water treatment plant at the mouth of the Bad River or at the source of the mine, to say this water needs to be as clean now when it goes into that ecosystem as when the mining company took it out. I don't think Chris Klein, I don't think Bill Williams, I don't think GTAC, and I sure don't think anybody in the legislature understands that or will address that situation. They just tend to ignore it and say, well, it's like the nuclear industry. We'll solve the problem when it 25 years from now, 30 years from now, and who's paying the price for cleaning up nuke waste dumps? It's us.
They essentially have admitted that there's going to be some kind of degradation, because people are saying, well, I can guarantee this as long as I'm elected, kind of a thing. I heard one legislator saying that, can we hold you to that? And he says, oh yeah, I'm held to it every time I'm reelected. They're thinking in the short term. They're not thinking 7 generations, certainly.
Well, it's a smug, arrogant attitude. When this started back in, beginning of 2011, we were told all the mining rules and regulations will be followed. Repeatedly, the company said, if we can't put this in and protect the environment, we'll leave. That hasn't been true at all. We're still looking at a same bill that was tweaked in a bar room in Hurley, probably on a dirty napkin, saying we can address all of these issues, and it wanders on down to the state capitol, and we sit and listen to a committee debating things that they really don't understand. There's no respect given to the people who have lived there, no respect given to the spiritual connections to the land. Yeah, I'm sure my ancestors had spiritual connections to Ireland, to the places where they lived, and we were forced out. Now we're here, and if we don't have those spiritual connections, we certainly have the ancient knowledge that lets us know that those connections are there, and we can respect our friends and neighbors. We can honor the past. The history of Wisconsin started with treaties. What Wisconsin is today was constructed years ago by people who sat down and went into serious, honest, upfront negotiations. On the one side, you had a influx, an infestation, as my old friend Wall used to say, of white guys. Well, we're here to stay. So the negotiating that was done protected a way of life forever with the elders that sat down and negotiated the treaties. My ancestors accepted that. Those are our treaties. I will honor them. I expect the state of Wisconsin to honor them. I expect tribal government to honor them, and we can move forward. If we're not going to move forward, That's why we're going to be in litigation and be in court, and no one will ever be happy, because we're dishonoring our own history.
We're speaking with Frank Kane from the Pinocchio Hills Education Project and several other organizations. You want to give us a URL for any of these? Can you run them off the top of your head?
SaveTheWatersEdge.com. It's all there.
Okay, there you go. You got it. I'm Paul DeMain, reporting from the capital of the state of Wisconsin for IndianCountryTV.com. Thanks, Frank. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care.
And that is another roundup of news from Indian Country. On this edition of the Native News Update, we want to say miigwech for joining with us and come back again soon.